Ampo pa gyu tra shi pa tu che tempe trin le yar ngoda pelge drolor zambe ze parachi pande lame shab solwa de Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timu Nisha Sane Karm Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om A Guru Vajrad Suma Timu Nisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Vajrad Suma Timu Nisha Sane Kar Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Vajradhara Suma Timu Nisha Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timu Nisha Sane Kar Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timu Nisha Sane Kar Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timu Nisha Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timu Nisha Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dhagi Jutsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shisan Dala Tendo So Oyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Tseji Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dejen Korlo Visu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Gemel Hungi Drubra Ching Tsoni Sokdan Dikdun Shape Tse Dungi Namke Yinsu Lekshune Lapchen Tsoni Yonsu Tsopa Dan Chera Nyetun Changra Ching Ninsen Tukun Tu Nyu Peme Siudru Lekshune Chanchu Drube Gelgen Kunshi Shi Tungen Dela Drubra Chingi Dagi Lona Chola Chokpa Dan Ngemba Shiwada Dende Malupa Gemel Hungi Drubra Chingil Dorna Tingne Tsera Tamche Dan Techi Pardu Nekab Tamche Tu Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tukje Chingi Dala Siksu Sol Gongyab Drewe Nyamta Dachala Chetsun Lame Tuje Rabgong Kodan Sunge Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamso Nyongwe Kesan Toprasho Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Cheki Pela Longche Chi Sadan Lamge Yende Rabzone Kopa Nyurto Sho Pakyoke Kodan Dagilu Pakyoke Sundan Dagi Ngam Pakyoke Tukdan Dagi Tuen Yerme Chikto Chingi Lo Makyoke Kodan Dagilu Makyoke Sundan Dagi Ngam Tukdan Dagi Tuen Yerme Chikto Chingi Lo Sashipu ki chushi me to tamari rabalingash ni de gempadi sange shintu mi shin la che opar Yedam Guru Ratna Mindra La Kam Niryata Yami Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Rola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho. Nel Buddha,
in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo yal haye ke dan ludan jin ke rubundan da mi ke nam dan rubakun ke janam chit sampa tamche ke to dagi chete. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
If anybody needs translation, you can have the headphones for the English version. Okay? Yeah, just there on the corner there. Una delle cose
I've already said many times. I hope that one day will be enough, though. Saying it's never enough in that sense, but we, whether we are aware or not, each one of us lives his own life through himself or herself, and each one is living his own movie. So so he's kind of acting in his own way, but it's not just that. Everything that I see inevitably is a reflex of what I am. I cannot do otherwise. It's a bit as if, because each one of us is living in his or own movie, we are also the directors of our own life. But it depends. So, because some of us are directors who have been specialized in horrors or the other thrillers or other comedies, or maybe we are kind of mixing everything together, and when we see a movie of a certain director, we can recognize the director because it's always like placed in certain scenes. Like for example, a film, a movie of Woody Allen, you can recognize that it's from him. So because there are some kind of elements. But if we were able to see the movies of each one of us, then we would be able to understand who they belong to, I think. So our own way of being a directors of our own life is based on habits. It's not based on a process that is conscious, aware. Okay, I'm choosing, I'm doing this kind of movie. No. It's like when it happens that there is an actor or an actress that is playing a role inside of a series. There used to be soap operas, now there are TV series, but anyway, it's like playing a character for many years. Then it happens, not always, but it happens that then the actor or the actress cannot distinguish the identity of one or the other. And somehow we as directors also we are not really able to distinguish the movie that we are creating from something from the movie itself. So we are the directors somehow of our life and we are not aware of being it. We give the guilt or the merits to what is happening around us constantly. Our way of building our own reality is based predominantly on two things. Our karmic force that has been accumulated, in other words, our own choices made in the past, the actions, the seeds planted in the past, the energy that we carry with us, and the habits that we have in the present, the mental state, physical, verbal, our own way of acting, speaking and thinking in the present moment. And these two things together, then we can sum a third thing that are the conditions, external conditions. These three factors together go and build the reality that we have in each moment. On the external conditions we can work with up to a certain point, trying to have favorable situations, trying to have people with whom we kind of agree with. Sometimes there are people that are very like proud because like maybe in the intimate circle of people then he's like the smartest or then that's not a good sign because usually it's better to have people close to you that inspire you, that make you help to grow. Then there are many ways to grow, but then okay, if we are well, that's a good sign anyway. But the point is that the external conditions are important and we need to take care of them to be in a context that is as sane as possible from the point of view of relationship, food, the environment, in every aspect. That is important. We don't take away the importance from that. But one of the most important points in this process is the way with which we interact and live the everyday life. And this doesn't depend on what we have understood. It depends on the habits that we have accumulated. And these habits, there are of many kinds. Sometimes there is a tendency of speaking more of the negative aspects, so like for example traumas, that one lives the present through the experience of the past, and so sometimes there are some situations that go and activate some wounds of the past and we live the present through that. But we constantly, willingly or not, live the present and our projection of the future through our own past. It is not possible to do otherwise. And even, okay, this is not the argument of today, but the mind also constantly is kind of forecasting what will happen. Even what we see, look at, is not exactly the present. It is said that when we see something, actually we are forecasting what we will see by a few milliseconds. And there was an experiment that was made many years ago with two lights, one blue and one red, that would turn on alternatively with a certain frequency, one after the other. And after you're there and looking at the lights turning on and off, you start to see one light coming from one side to the other side, when actually there is one light here and one light there, because the mind starts to forecast that the other light is turning on, and so you see it moving, but there is no light moving. So what we see, what we hear, and so on, there is a very important part of what we forecast. So we imagine, based on our past experience, we are there forecasting what will happen in every moment. All of this just to say that we are not able to live the present independently of the past on every level. Knowledge, emotions, various experiences on every level. So how can I assure that I can have good resources to live the present? Generating positive experiences today, so that the present that is a good present will become the past tomorrow. So today is the future of yesterday and the past of tomorrow. So we need to generate a good today to be able with this to generate a good past, and the good past will allow us to live better the present, which in turn will allow us to project better the future. How do we do this? When we live the present, and more than that, when we interact with our past, what remains are mostly our memories. The past today is made mostly by the memories, by the habits that we created, and we have the memories of what happened. And somehow our memory has a selective feature, and memory in time changes according to the things that we repeat as memory. This has happened or something else. And it is not for nothing that Buddha Shakyamuni describes 7 things that we should do every day, that are called the 7 limbs, that then is often described as the prayer of the 7 limbs that need to be recited every day. Yes or no? Yes, you can recite it as a prayer, but it goes much beyond the recitation. This is about some actions that are important for ourselves, and some actions that are important and fundamental in our relationship with the other. So in this case, with our spiritual guide. There are 2 fundamental ones that are important for us also. One is to openly admit our mistakes, which doesn't mean to get into like a sense of guilt. It means rather to review what we have done, and to see, okay, this went well, this didn't go so well, why didn't go so well? Okay, then I need to be careful to not repeat it. And not just this, but in openly admitting our mistakes, it comes as the next step to put ourselves at peace with our past. So yes, I recognize that I have done something that was not right, that I have replied, like I answered in a way that was not proper, I had like an aggressive reaction, whatever it was, I recognize that mistake. I don't victimize myself. This is fundamental. So I recognize that I've had like a behavior that was not sane, was not good, that whether it was verbal or physical or mental. I recognize that. I commit to not repeat it again. I use it like an experience. I'm walking and I hit my shoulder somewhere. The next time I go through this, then I be careful. Like if I fall into a hole, then it's the same thing. I need to be careful. But at the same time, I welcome myself with love. Okay, why have I done this mistake, for the habits that I've already created, for my conditioning. Then I make like an effort to get out of it without staying there and victimizing myself or like making myself guilty. So we have this tendency of victimizing ourselves, so making the other guilty or the world or life or something, or the tendency to blame ourselves. Ah, look, I still haven't understood. I'm here following the Buddhism for many years and I still make these mistakes. Yes. If it wasn't that, then we would already all be Buddhas. But it's not really like that, the path. We are made of habits, needs time. So the process of openly admitting our mistakes, sometimes translated as confessing, but confessing already comes with like a different um, cultural context. So it means like to recognize that something stupid is to recognize that that's stupid. That's it. So if I'm cooking and as I am eating what I have cooked and there was too much salt, then I need to be careful. Okay, I need to be careful next time to put less salt. That's it ends there. So we recognize the mistakes that we have committed, the things that are not so well, and we redirect ourselves to not repeat them again. And together with this is important the process of putting ourselves at peace with the past, so to remove that sense of guilt, that weight that remains of what has been done before. The next step, which is not previous, and here the order changes the result, the order of the factors changes the result, is that first we openly admit the mistakes, then we rejoice. The rejoicing is one of the most important things that we need. It's our own capacity of seeing things, looking at things that went well, looking at the good aspects both of ourselves and the others, and to feel joy for that. When we remember ourselves of something beautiful, like something positive, all our own, the whole body experiences that thing, goes through that, our whole system goes through that experience. Our mind has this very particular characteristic. When we remember something, it's as if partly we were reliving it. So when I remember something that was awful, my body reacts. I can have a stress reaction, or the cortisol can increase, or whatever, because I put myself on the defense. When I remember of something beautiful, like a good moment or something positive, whatever it was, my body reacts, usually depending on the type of situation. Like maybe if we remember a moment where there was like an exchange of affections, or a moment where there was like a human connection with the other, that memory makes us generate oxytocin, like a feeling of well-being. And the important thing is that when there is that feeling, that allows us to have a good memory of the past, to then be able to have a positive vision of the future, because when we think about the tomorrow, we use as a point of reference to imagine the future today and yesterday. And we live today based on yesterday. But what happens is the following. In one day, there are many things happening. Some things are good, some things are not so good, difficult, most things neutral, but there are many things happening in one day. When I go there and I start to point the finger at the things that are not right, and I stay there criticizing, complaining, look, this didn't go well, and so on. At the end of the day, I generalize that day based on that thing that went badly. So in my memory, what does remain? That. Other than the fact that when we go to sleep, one of the important functions of dreams, there are many functions, but one of the most important ones is that the experiences that we have lived during the day, we solidify them in our long-term memory. So, for example, they made some experiments where they would take some mice, small mice, and during the day they would teach them to go through a certain route, path inside of a labyrinth, and during the night they would control the cerebral activity, and they would be mentally revisiting what they did, that the path that they did. So what happens is that a person also that doesn't sleep well or enough has a less memory because he or she doesn't have the possibility of taking those experiences and fixating them in the long-term memory. So our process of memory happens during the night as we sleep. And this makes me also think that when we do the process of memorizing, one tries to do the pre-memorization before sleeping, like as the last thing, and starts to memorize again as the first thing after waking up. So what happens is that this is a parenthesis, and the sleep is important and goes to stabilize. But if I go to sleep and I think about what went badly, so in my long-term memory, what aspect of that day stays fixated there? It went badly. So bit by bit, the things that went well, we don't fixate them in the long-term memory and they fade away. When the beautiful things fade from our memory and we are in the future, present, and I have to act in front of the various things, what kind of point of reference do I have? Like, what went badly, so I have fear in the present and I have fear in the future. I react badly to what is happening now, and I have anxiety, fear towards the future, so I have a reaction of stress because I live a threat. One of the methods to invert this mechanism is to remember the good things, to try to celebrate the positive things, and to allow ourselves also to do this in a certain, also kind of like a mechanical way. So, like getting at the end of the week, at the end of the day, to write down the things that went well, to have some pictures of reference. Because our past is something that needs to be built not only with experiences that have been lived, but mostly with what memories we fixate. So the order that Buddha explained, first to openly admit the mistakes, then your joys, it means that rejoicing after that, we generalize the past based on the last thing that we have done. And to rejoice, to be able to see the positive aspects, is fundamental for all of us, especially when in a certain point of our life we find ourselves in a moment of particular difficulty, for example, like a physical illness, like pain or anything like that. There are moments where it's possible. Unfortunately, there are people. Also, yesterday, this comes to my mind because yesterday I talked about this with a person that finds herself in a state of extremely difficult and painful illness where don't really also know what or how what can be done, or where also morphine doesn't do much. And one of the things that happens when one finds himself or herself in that state, obviously there is not one thing that you just snap your fingers and everything is well. But it was very interesting, because yesterday it was like with this couple, the husband, they were both in a tremendous physical situation, but the husband was like in a state of great calmness, peace. The wife was with a lot of anxiety and fear, different kind of pains, different illnesses. And there I could see how what tremendous difference does it make how one lives it. But of course, like in order to live a difficult moment, then I must have trained in the past, must be able to not kind of drag myself down by all the problems of everyday life. If we allow ourselves that when there are like the small difficulties of everyday life that we drag our mood there and we stay angry, depressed, and sad for the stupid things of everyday life, the day that we will have like a serious difficulty, like a chronic problem, I hope that nobody will have that, but if it happens, then where will our mind go? When we get used to not letting ourselves to be dragged down by the small difficulties of everyday life and to rejoice of the positive things, to connect with the good things, which doesn't mean to not face things. We face them, we face the small difficulties, but we connect with the positive aspects, we remember them, we celebrate them, we rejoice. And bit by bit, we train ourselves to not be dragged away by the small difficulties of everyday life. This allows ourselves in the future, if it ever happens to have like a bigger difficulty, to have a habit to be able to bring the mind to a peaceful place. And what needs to be done is when one finds himself or herself in a situation like that, one of the things that can help a lot is to have an internal place of refuge, whether it's like a positive memory. And it's interesting because when we live a very difficult moment, we have a hard time to allow ourselves to connect with a good memory, with a positive memory. So speaking with this woman was very sick. Look, try to reconnect with a good memory, but it's like as if it's impossible in the moment, as if that didn't exist. Sometimes when we are in a moment of difficulty, to allow ourselves to connect with something good, it's almost as if like a betrayal. But it's not. It's a place of refuge. Which doesn't mean to pretend that the problem is not there and to not face it. The problem is there, needs to be faced, the medicine needs to be taken, the treatment needs to be done. But in the meanwhile, where do I place my mind? And one of the important things is to have a place where I can bring my mind to. But in order to do this in the moments of difficulties, then we need to be able to have that place and to bring our mind in that place in the moments, the normal moments. And this is one of the meanings of the practice of, and the functions also of the practice of Guru Yoga. But our own capacity of having a memory, a place, a person, an image, whatever, that when we remember that, we go back to a memory of something extremely beautiful, pleasant, joyous, peaceful. It can be like a specific moment with someone, like a certain person in particular, with whom we have had moments of love, of trust, of joy, of peace, or a particular moment of our life, and we to train our mind to go back to that place. When we are able to, through refuse to do that, through the memories, through the image, to like maybe some words, like music that we can put on, like a smell or so taste, whatever that makes us go back there. The more times I go back there, the stronger that place becomes inside of me. The stronger that memory remains inside of me, and the stronger then it also becomes to go back there. This has a tremendous power, and it's really important for each one of us to try to find a way to do that. And so it becomes important in our everyday life to dedicate a certain space of time, a certain moment, to fixate the good memories. This is done by celebrating, by remembering the good things, by rejoicing of the positive things. First, starting from ourselves, and then also doing it for the others. Managing to rejoice of the positive things of the others. It's very difficult. Seems easy, but it's not. But first, we need to be able to rejoice of ourselves to be able to then rejoice of the others. And it may seem like a trivial thing in some sense, but it's very important. And I repeat, this doesn't mean that we need to somehow pretend that the difficult part is not there or the problems are not there. No, the problems are there, need to be faced, seen in the best way possible. But one thing doesn't take away from the other. So first we face what didn't go well, and then you face what went well to also generalize the memory through what went well, without trying to kind of scratch away the mistake that had been committed. Oh, so if I say, okay, how beautiful that this thing went like that, that doesn't mean that, like one thing takes away from the other. So that way of saying, of deep philosophy, one thing is one thing, another thing is another thing. This profound wisdom aside all jokes.
Quello che è interessante è che più volte lo
And what is interesting is that the more times that we do this, the more we familiarize ourselves with that. We get used to seeing things in a certain way, the more I'm able to build my present in a positive, beautiful way, and to connect my past, because let's remember, the past is impermanent. According to what I do today, related to yesterday, my yesterday changes. What had been there, how it was, what had happened, changes. Because as we have said before, we have the tendency of taking that day of yesterday and to generalize it. Okay, it went badly. Why? Because I had a headache. But did you have like a good meeting? You had like moments of joy? Were you able to face a difficult situation in a more stable way? Maybe there were very positive things in that day. So it's not that it was like a bad day. It was like a day where there was like some headache. Let's try to avoid it. So maybe not eat that certain thing. Try to be careful to eat to sleep better. I don't know, whatever it's a cause. But how beautiful that I was able to do this, to meet that person, to have that moment, and to allow ourselves that. So, and when we do that, then we kind of rebuild our yesterday's day. And it's not just the day of yesterday, but it's also we can also go back and rebuild our past. One of the things that can help in this is to use also, for example, pictures. So one of the things that I've already done is to take all the pictures of all the past years and to kind of go through them to kind of remember the moments. Okay, here this happened, how beautiful, look, there, this other thing happened, and somehow fixating the memory of what had happened. Because our tendency very often is that as of today we have an enormous quantity of stimulation, that we have a hard time to fixate our long-term memory. I don't know how is it for the majority of you, but I see that very often, both in me and in the people around me, our capacity of memory is not so great. What has happened yesterday or the other day, when it was really... And one of the reasons is that we have too much information and we leave things in a quite superficial way. And so somehow we must go back to those events, maybe through the pictures or like a diary that someone is keeping, so somehow allowing ourselves to go and revisit that experience. Ah, yes, that happened, how beautiful it was because of this and that. Then slowly we kind of rewrite our story. And when we rewrite the past, then we are also rewriting the present and the future. And this is important. So somehow one could also say, yes, but the past is already past. The important thing is how one lives the present. Not so really, not so much. Yes, partly yes, but the reality is that if we don't rewrite our past, we will have a hard time to live the present in a good way because whether we are aware or not, we live the present through the past. Our own identity of who I am, the way with which we react to the various situations that we live, the way that we project and imagine the future, is based on that. So, as we were saying in the beginning, it's like the director that it's like directing, but that it's based on the habits of what has already been done in the past. So it's not just enough to understand, I know the past is finished, that is not there anymore, let's do something else. It doesn't really work like that because we uh, act on a basis of reaction in general. So when we build positive images of the past, we have good memories, we connect with that, that gives us a basis to live in a different way the present. And it's not, someone could say, yes, but this seems like kind of trying to trick reality, trying to pretend that things are not there. No, it's not that. It's really not like that. We are, in any case, how can we say, our way of seeing the reality is illusory, whether we want it or not. But I go live the present very often through a generalization of the past. And what I choose, it's a choice. That maybe it's not aware, but it's a choice. And for this, it becomes very important to nourish, feed that beautiful past, positive past. And one of the ways of doing it is by celebrating, rejoicing. I've had a personal experience where some people, and as I was living in India, there were some people from which I have received many beautiful things, many good moments, but then they behaved in a way towards me that, in my personal judgment, was quite negative, without getting into details now. And there I found myself, it was one of the first times where I could put into action that sentence one thing is one thing and another thing is another thing. So I made an exercise that was not easy to to say thanks for what you have given me, thanks for what you have taught me, thanks for what you have offered me, your friendship, the positive things that were there. And at the same time, to recognize that this behavior and that other behavior is not right, and I take distance from this behavior and that. And in my memory, there is like a side where I'm sorry for a certain behavior, and on the other side, I keep on being thankful for the other beautiful thing that I have received. And this makes it so that when I think about one of those people, I don't have like a bad feeling. There is more like a feeling of gratitude, friendship. And then there is also something sour because some things didn't go so well, but one thing didn't take away from the other, and for me this was very important. But it's an exercise that we do of saying thanks and to allow ourselves to see what is positive and good. And the good thing about this is that, for example, when someone asks me, Lama, but you trust everyone. Yes, more or less I do. In some cases, like extreme cases, then I say, okay, here is better not to trust. But in general, at 99%, I trust. And someone maybe asks me, but it has never happened to you that you trust someone, then you see that, okay, you couldn't actually trust that person in that context and so on. Yes, but I prefer to trust. This is how I am. And what I see is that when I allow myself to thank, to rejoice, to connect with the good side of people or situations and so on, this allows me to have a vision of the future that is positive, to have trust in the future, without getting into the idealized vision that everything will go alright. Alright, no, it will not go, but there will be many aspects that will be good, some other aspects that will be difficult. We will face the difficult ones, we will find some solutions, and the solutions that we will not find, we will focus on other things that that went good, and we will face life as life comes, but with trust. And this trust towards the future is born out of living, being able to live the present in a good way and consequently to have a good future, a good past, which doesn't mean to have problems. And the last thing on that point, two things have really helped me a lot in that moment. One thing was to remember one thing is one thing and another thing is another thing, and internally to make a process of saying thanks and to connect with the people and the good aspects of them because they were sincere and true. But at the same time, okay, saying okay in front of the situation, a certain situation, I had to create some distance. And as I was in this, there was like a moment where there was like a certain kind of feeling of, aha, wow, why does it have to be like this? And one day I was speaking with Lama, and Rinpoche told me, look, these people are not, their way of behaving, what they do, they are like a cow taken away by a thief. Pak in Tibetan means cow. Kuma is a thief, triba, taken away. Why? Let's imagine that we have some cows. There's like an example that was given in Tibet, where okay, the cows were very important in a farmer's culture. So at certain point, some thieves come and they take away the cows. How can the thief take away a cow? Does he have to convince? He needs to convince the cow. No, takes the cow from the nose or whatever and takes it away. So what do you blame? Like the cow that went away or the thief that took it? But the cow is enormous. If he just sits on the ground, then you can't take it away. But that's not in his nature. So Lama was saying, okay, these people are nothing else but cows taken away by a thief. Because the thief, to let to let ourselves to be influenced by some concepts, it's easier than anything else. So very often the thief is like a cultural context, our own ignorance, selfishness, attachment, and so on. And for me, this was the moment where I could see these people, look at these people, and to see somehow how also them, I use the wrong term, but maybe it helps to explain, they were also victims of themselves, of what led them to behave in a certain way, of like a certain social context, some aspects that led them to behave in a certain way. But the important thing here is to connect ourselves with the positive aspects, because I had lived very few situations in my life where I could say that there were like only good sides. But I've lived many situations with many positive things and also negative things, and also the other way around. And when we allow ourselves to see what is not right and to say, okay, what can I learn from this? And after that, to after seeing what after seeing that, also looking at what it was good and to rejoice of that, how beautiful that it was there, that gives a certain joy, like a solid basis to live better. Otherwise, the other way around is that we constantly complain, we constantly criticize, we constantly go through what didn't go well, and we build the future through that past and the present. In other words, we live the past and then we live the present through that past, and then we live the future through also that. And when we live like a past that was like threatening, like a bad past, we have fear in the present, and we live the future as a constant threat. We get into a state of chronic stress that is going to lead to various diseases. So we have to avoid this. So to rewrite the past is one of the important exercises to be done without like tricking anything, but like in a sincere way, connecting with the good things, writing them down or putting pictures together, doing something that helps us to go back there many times, to review, relive those positive things. And one of the things that we can do when we have good moments, positive things, we write them down like in a diary of the positive things, because like maybe in the moments where one sees everything black, dark, then needs like something that makes himself or herself go back there. This was what I wanted to bring today. So one of the most powerful resources that we have for our future is to build a good past in our memory, first of all. Now let's make our dedications.
Lame kutse rapten chin nam kartin le chokchur gepadang losan tempe drume sasum ki drove munsel taktu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama Bela longche ching sadan lamge yenten rabzone dorje change kopa nyurtob sho nimo dele tsindele nime kuyan delekshin ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chinge lob kuncho sumke ngodrugot sol Concio sum quieta all'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and spring all the path of our lives to its various signs of auspiciousness. Buona giornata a tutti.
Have a good day, everyone.